this is a question for both of you, and perhaps we'll start with Dr. Stearns. How did you become interested in a career in cancer research?
I started getting interested in cancer research early in my fellowship. To me, the physicians I've witnessed most of my life were clinicians, and I didn't know very much about research, but during residency and then beyond, when I started first year of fellowship and I was exposed to some incredible physician scientists, that it was clear to me that I wanted to pursue research. And I was also seeing a lot of young women with breast cancer in particular. As a young woman in academia at the time, I really felt that I needed to do more for them. And that's what started my research career in breast cancer.
Thank you. And Dr. Sheng.
Similar to Dr. Stearns, I think that it starts very early on in medical education and training. I was very fortunate that when I was in medical school, I rotated with numerous physicians, but there was an oncologist that really stuck in my mind, Dr. Lillian Planier, and she was just such a compassionate physician, and she spoke so highly of her training at a really robust academic center, Memorial Sloan Kettering, and it really started to make me think a little bit more about the importance of cancer research in combination with giving really strong clinical care. And ultimately, I really leapt into cancer research when I started exploring research with Dr. Linger at Fox Chase during my internal medicine residency. And she really showed me the potential for clinical research in cancer survivorship. And prior to that, my research had been kind of in the wet lab, basic science, and that's all I really knew about cancer research. So she kind of opened up my eyes to that and really helped me to get excited about pursuing quality of life research, health behaviors, and patient outcomes.
That's so good. And I think that just speaks so much to the importance of, being exposed to physicians and scientists early on in your career, and a whole array of physicians and scientists, so that you can experience different areas of research and really get excited and kind of forge your own path. So that's great. So looking at the Conquer Cancer Foundation Awards supported by BCRF, which you both received, how did you react in the moment when you received it? And Dr. Stearns, if you want to start.
So I received the first Advanced Career Research Award, ACRA from ASCO, and it was new. And not only was it new for ASCO, or the Conquer Cancer Foundation, but I felt it was a new initiative altogether, that we need to support physicians, not just when they're starting, not just when they're very comfortable with their research, but as they're transitioning from that first mentored few years to their independence. And, it was a very anxiety-provoking time for me. I was protected for a long time with other career development awards, and the options were to write lots of other grants or to be in clinic more. And as I considered my options, I really wanted to do both. I wanted to continue to see patients, but also continue my research and do other things. So this award has really allowed me to be independent, but also to transition to a more senior level. And I'm not sure what my career would have been like if I didn't have those additional protected years.
And Dr. Sheng, so you received a Young Investigator Award. How was that experience for you?
I was ecstatic, and it wasn't just an emotion that I felt, but I know that Dr. Stearns was just as excited for me, if not more excited. I remember sending her messages, and I know I got exclamation marks and smiley faces back at me. And I will preface that by saying that I had applied for the ASCO YIA my second year of fellowship and had not received it. And so I truly appreciated all the reviewers at ASCO and Conquer Cancer who spent time reading and responding to my application, and really gave me some takeaway points from that first application and how I could make a subsequent application even stronger. And in taking that feedback seriously, I spent over half a year designing the wireframe of a new study with Dr. Stearns. And she spent countless hours and drafts with me to get it to a point that it was in really solid shape. And she was meeting with me every 2 weeks to help guide me through the development of that study. So that's what made it so sweet. And overall, I know that we both just felt really grateful and very humbled by the award.
Dr. Stearns, if you can tell us a little bit about the early focus of your research and what it looks like now.
My research, starting at fellowship in my junior faculty years, focused on selecting biomarkers of response to treatment. A lot of this was in the neoadjuvant setting, but it expanded over time to also metastatic disease. And I always had a lot of interest in improving quality of life and wellness of women. So I've always had lots of interests, but in the early years when I tried to focus my work, as I mentioned, it was by incorporating biomarkers to help guide treatment. And in terms of new treatment approaches, our focus has been on epigenetic modulation. So my ACRA award was to conduct studies in the neoadjuvant and preoperative setting where we incorporated HDAC inhibitors, either alone or with chemotherapy, to try and enhance responses to standard agents. And that work was also expanded through other mechanisms and larger grants and support for studies in the metastatic setting. Over the years, as I've expanded my research group and added other physicians and physician scientists to a group, I'm able to do many more things, which is fun, guiding junior faculty members and other trainees has been just phenomenal. So for example, Dr. Sheng, through her work, she's basically taken on most of our wellness and survivorship related efforts and also some educational activities. Other colleagues are focused, for example, on breast cancer related studies with immunotherapy agents, other on patient reported outcomes. So we have a mixture of different individuals with different expertise and interests, and I help guide them. And it's really the most fun thing I could have ever expected to do.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what that mentor-mentee relationship looks like, especially for physician scientists?
There are different styles of mentoring trainees and individuals, and I guess if you ask different mentors, they'll probably have a different answer. So I can just tell you my style, and I think that some of the approach that I've taken is also approach that I've learned from my mentors. And what I like to do is find out as much as possible about the interests and background and future interests of my trainees and junior faculty and other mentees, and then try to think with them of what can be done to both meet their interests, but also expand some of what we're doing in our program. So, sometimes it's hard to start something completely new, but it's easy to maybe adapt or take something that we've already done. So I think, Dr. Sheng, for example, met me initially during our fellowship and told me about our interests in survivorship and other aspects of care. And, we developed several ideas that then she has thought about. And as a mentor, I help create connections for my trainees, mentees. So I told her who she should meet with related to, let's say, biostatistics or patient-reported outcomes, et cetera. And I made those initial contacts, but then, I do expect her to come up with her hypotheses and aims and methodologies, and I'm here to guide her or point her to other individuals who can help put those aims together and implement a study, and then help through troubleshooting. For example, in her particular case, her award for a study that got hugely delayed due to COVID and how we had to adapt it. So troubleshooting and moving forward, but I do expect my trainees to lead their studies, to take the initiatives, and I'm here to guide them.
Love that you also guide your mentees to engage with other mentors as well, and so that it's really kind of a team effort. So Dr. Sheng, is survivorship, is that what led you to work with Dr. Stearns?
Certainly in terms of the research topic of interest, but when I had initially started my medical oncology fellowship at Hopkins, I knew that I was going to pursue some sort of clinical research in cancer survivorship. And in the middle of my first year in fellowship, I had met with numerous faculty members, over 10 of them, in order to identify a mentor. And I will say that as soon as I met Dr. Stearns, I felt really at ease. I felt supported. She was genuinely interested in supporting how I could grow over time. And she already had a very strong reputation as a very effective leader. So I felt very confident embarking on my journey with her. I think that having trust with your mentor is so, so important. And, while her expertise is so broad and it's been in the translational realm, and she's done work with predictors of response to treatments and utilizing biomarkers. What I think is most impressive about her is that she's transitioned so many young investigators into independent careers. And I just knew that in choosing her, that she would be tremendously supportive of my work and to just guide me. As she's mentioned, that's how she views her role. She's always been just responsive to ideas, and she's just consistently there. She's regularly meeting up with myself and other mentees, even though she is overextended and has numerous responsibilities within our department and our institution. So she carves out that time for us, whether it's during the day or the evening or sometimes the weekends. She just continues to do that. And so it was very easy for me to choose her as a mentor, and I'm very grateful that she chose me as a mentee.
Looking at the early career research experience, Dr. Stearns, do you think it has changed much over time? Do you think that the same challenges exist now as they did when you were starting? Or what do you think that development has looked like over time?
I certainly think that over time there are more challenges for our younger investigators today that we may have had some years ago. And I can list a few for you. At the same time, I do think that there's more available to help mentor them in a broader scale. So just a few examples. It used to be a lot quicker to write a protocol and submit it to IRB and get the medication or drug that you needed for it and get the support and complete it in a 2-year research fellowship. And today, it sometimes takes us 2 years just to get an LOI approved, even though there's a lot of interest. And, I think it's really challenging for trainees, especially during fellowship, to really complete clinical research in that time. So at least what I try to do, and again, I think Dr. Sheng does provide an excellent example, is to have my trainees, and this is more for fellows, both start something new that's theirs, but also help complete or run something that's already ongoing. So Dr. Sheng helped us with some of our weight loss studies, for example, that we've already completed but had secondary endpoints, and she's been able to report and publish and present those in national meetings and high impact journals. So I was pleased to see that. And then she's enrolling to our studies and receiving grants and support for her current studies that, as I mentioned earlier, had a big setback through the COVID, but now is enrolling extremely well. So, those are just some examples. And then, but on a broader scale, I think as leaders in an institution, we realize that trainees need more support, and there's more availability of, let's say, grant writing forums and mentoring committees where you get more formal comments from individuals who may not be your primary mentors. As you mentioned, previously, that the mentor has to advance the field, help support other trainees. So you need somebody to help make sure that you as an individual trainee is getting the full support of the institution. So I do think that there's more availability of those other helping hands, if you will. But overall, I think there's definitely much more of a challenge to initiate and complete a clinical trial today.
Yeah. Dr. Sheng, obviously, in addition to being an early career researcher, you had to also be an early career researcher during COVID. So would you agree with Dr. Stearns that being an early career researcher right now is a challenging prospect, or how do you view it?
Yes, I certainly agree with Dr. Stearns, and I'm sure that any researcher will tell you that there are some common challenges that whether you were researching now in 2021 or 10 years ago, there is a theme. So time and responsibilities between research and clinical care and administrative duties is always something that we're trying to juggle. And really trying to form those collaborations is also a challenge, and navigating that in the virtual world and fostering connections can sometimes be challenging. But what I think is really neat is that there are so many people that are passionate about their research and that are excited that you are interested as well. And so I think that even though there are some challenges and barriers, that a lot of those can be overcome. I think there are lifelong probably challenges that come with grantsmanship and learning how to develop those applications to be stronger and to really advocate for patients and the things that are truly going to impact them in a positive way. And then just the other challenges of balancing work and life and family. So there's probably a lot of consistency, whether you ask that question now or many years ago.
Dr. Stearns, did receiving the Conquer Cancer Foundation Award open up any new opportunities for you?
I received the first ACRA, or the Advanced Career Research Award from the Conquer Cancer Foundation. And it came in the period of my life when I was transitioning from a young mentor investigator to my independent career. And to me, it was definitely and probably the most important award that helped me continue to pursue clinical investigation. I was able to maintain protected time in which I could write and bring in new ideas to the clinic, collaborate with my laboratory-based investigators, and so on. It also allowed me to more quickly move forward some of the studies I was interested in.
Dr. Sheng, if you could tell us a little bit more about the research you performed through the Young Investigator Award, and if perhaps the award, did that open up any new research avenues that you weren't looking at before?
Sure, I'd be glad to talk a little bit more about that. I think that, as Dr. Stearns has already mentioned, one of our overarching goals in cancer care is really to improve overall health and quality of life, and to potentially modify risk factors that can impact recurrence risk. And so the focus of the research project that's funded is really looking at ways that we can address excess weight in early stage breast cancer survivors. And this incorporates a 6-month intervention in a single arm phase 2 adaptive weight loss study. And it includes a behavioral weight loss intervention and integration of weight loss trajectory for early identification of those that are unlikely to attain significant weight loss. So a few of the novel aspects of this study include incorporation of weight loss trends, and also the use of FDA-approved pharmacotherapy that hasn't been previously tested in cancer survivors. Essentially, with COVID, there were certainly some delays, and as you can imagine, such a behavioral intervention really warranted as many remote components as possible. So we made modifications to adapt to the environment, and we were ultimately able to open in February of 2021. And I will say that I'm very grateful for the funding and the award because it really gave us the opportunity to further develop the study and really refine the intervention itself. And I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is the collaborations that have developed as a result of the visibility of this award. So now I've been able to develop other studies in target populations with endocrinology, incorporating body composition, thinking about cardiometabolic risk factors, and also cardiologists looking at CVD or cardiovascular disease risk reduction. So I think that this award in and of itself has numerous positive results.
You had this great story about obviously when you got your award, but I was just wondering if you had any other memorable moments from your time together as mentor and mentee.
I've had probably the most amazing relationship with Dr. Stearns, and she's been a fantastic role model and mentor to me for almost 4 years now. And I think in the week-to-week routine, we do see each other quite frequently, and we have this short amount of time to catch up and talk about projects. So what I most value is the opportunities when we get an extended period of time together, like at dinner during a conference or another meeting. And I will say that my favorite memory is actually from my fellowship graduation dinner, which is almost 2 years ago now. As I've mentioned before, Dr. Stearns is exceptionally busy. She's the co-director of the Women's Malignancies Program. She's the breast cancer research chair. She wears so many hats within Johns Hopkins. And so to say she's busy is an understatement. But to see her so joyfully take time out of her personal day and spend an evening with me is just, it's truly special. And so that really stands out to me because we were able to just share this delicious meal and exchange just gratitude for one another. And, you know, that evening, I really felt a lot of her love and her pride in me. And I could see how just everything that she pours out into other people, it's to help build them up. And so, you know, while I could say that we've had wonderful scientific conversations and developed projects and secured grants together, what I most value about her is her kindness and her honesty.
Thank you.
Well, I feel honored to have had Dr. Sheng choose me as a mentor, and we were thrilled when she decided to stay here for her faculty position. And I definitely miss this in-person dinners and brainstorming. I have a couple of moments that come to mind. One is definitely when we met during the ASCO meeting just before the award ceremony and took some photos with your award. That was really memorable. Or going to a small brainstorming dinner and getting stuck in the snow in the San Antonio meeting, totally unexpected. It's certainly really been an honor to see Dr. Sheng grow, and she's, you know, fairly independent now, very early in her career, and I know that when she says she's going to do something, she will. She's been very successful at getting additional grants, and I can't wait to continue and watch her career continue to flourish.
What do you both wish that you had known when you were just getting started, and what advice do you have for early career researchers?
So I think that I would really emphasize having persistence, patience, and adaptability. And I say that because I think that a certain level of persistence and optimism is always necessary when you're really convicted in sharing your project or idea with the scientific community, and that you're well-intentioned in that you believe it's going to be impactful for patients. But it is certainly tedious to apply for grants and awards, and especially because you can't get them all. In fact, you won't get most of them. And so I think just having that grit in you is really quite essential. And then this was already alluded to, but having patience in this whole process is vital. I think with 2020 and COVID-19, that certainly highlighted some of the issues that we can encounter in doing research. There can be delays in protocols, approvals, certain contracts, and really just being able to be adaptable during this entire period is really quite necessary in order to continue to make progress step by step. And so I think that, you know, in thinking about the past year and some of the studies that we had to think about ways that we could still deliver these clinical trials and interventions to patients, ways to make them remote, ways to strategize about maybe having a waiting list in the interim period of time, and just asking for help from other colleagues and brainstorming about ways to circumvent some of these issues.
Thank you. And Dr. Stearns, I feel like you gave some great advice already, but I just want to give you an opportunity if you had anything else you wanted to add.
I have several suggestions for new faculty members or trainees. First, do what you're really passionate about. I find that sometimes you get multiple people to give you advice, but if there's something that you really always wanted to do, try to find a way to do it, don't compromise if you don't have to. I think if you're passionate about something, you're more likely to be successful in achieving it. And also, you will have disappointments. We all have drawers or folders full of grants that were not funded, papers that were not published or were not published where you thought they should be. And you know, times change, and you start writing a clinical protocol today. 5 years from now, it may not be as interesting as it is today. So we need to adapt and change. I think Dr. Sheng really gives some good advice about being persistent. As a clinical investigator, it's also important for you to know what you're good at and where you need to seek help, whether it's a laboratory collaborator or a statistician, and make sure you know who your team members are. And I think the most important thing is that you do want to be in an environment that supports you and you feel as an integral member of the team.
Did I spot recently that you two had an opportunity to publish together?
Yes, that is correct. So we published a few times together, but most recently we wrote an editorial for OncoTarget, really focusing on the innovation and expanding weight loss strategies for breast cancer survivors. And as you know, Dr. Stearns has already done quite a bit of research in this space, starting with the POWER remote study, the practice-based opportunities for weight reduction in breast cancer survivors. And so really that editorial highlighted not just that clinical trial, but some of the analysis that we've been able to do since that time. So specifically, we had presented data on the impact of weight loss on symptoms and physical function at ASCO in 2020. And we actually just got notification that the paper will be published soon. And that paper essentially is focusing on results that really support the importance of symptom evaluation and the benefits of weight loss in overweight and obese breast cancer survivors. And in San Antonio in 2020, we also presented a post hoc analyses on the impact of sleep on weight loss outcomes. And so what we had found is that the breast cancer survivors that had received the weight loss intervention who reported normal sleep at baseline actually had double amount of weight loss than those with a sleep disturbance at 12 months time. And we're still working on that manuscript right now with a few of our colleagues, but we're excited to share that with the broad scientific community in the future. In that editorial, we also highlight some of the studies that we've been doing right now. We had a recent study that incorporated identification of insomnia, as well as a cognitive behavioral intervention. And we recently just opened another study, the adaptive weight loss study, that this award helped to fund in February. So we have been recruiting steadily for that, and we are so excited to share those at least preliminary results at a future conference.
Can you tell us a bit more about why weight loss reduction is so important to look at for breast cancer survivors?
Certainly. So I think that across the board, even for non-cancer survivors, we know that adiposity or excess weight is strongly correlated with overall mortality, death, higher risk of cardiovascular events. And in a breast cancer survivor population, they actually have more factors that can increase that risk over time. And so there's increasing literature that shows that receipt of chemotherapy can impact resting metabolism. There's some controversial literature about the use of certain other therapies such as endocrine therapy and how that could contribute to weight gain. And what's I think really neat is that we're learning more about how excess weight can really impact outcomes in certain populations, such as a subtype that's estrogen receptor positive or progesterone receptor positive. And ultimately, the goal is to think about how we can help all patients not just live longer, but live better. And our eyes aren't purely on breast cancer recurrence reduction as a whole, although we suspect that weight loss can help mitigate that or reduce that. But when we look at it from a research perspective, we look at it in terms of the overall health and well-being of a breast cancer patient.
As Dr. Sheng just told us, weight loss is very important, not just for individuals at risk or those living with or surviving cancer, but for all of us. So when I talk to my patient, I encourage this to be a family affair, something they do with friends and family and loved ones. We all should be thinking a little bit more about what we're eating and how we include physical activity in our lives. It doesn't have to be rigorous. It doesn't have to be every day, but we all have to include some. So I encourage everyone to be thinking about the best possible healthy lifestyle. Our funders, such as the Breast Cancer Research Foundation and Conquer Cancer Foundation, have been instrumental in building so many careers and developing so many relationships. And without their forward thinking and support of innovative minds and high risk studies, we wouldn't be where we are today as researchers. So thank you.